Okay, so tonight we're going to be covering in depth some of the valuable lessons in Parashat Naso. You may be surprised to learn that there's a very sad story in this week's Parasha, and that is the breaking of a home that could have started on the right foundation. Soulmates, the husband and wife, but they end up possibly in a divorce. And the reason for that is because unfortunately the woman made a mistake. As a result of her mistake, she betrayed the trust of her husband. She's called a sotah. She veered off the path and she went against the Torah. Not only did she betray the trust of her husband, but she also went against the Torah. She's married, she's committed, but she committed a mistake. How did she commit a mistake? Poor judgment. That's how some mistakes happen, as a result of poor judgment. And as a result of this mistake, her whole marriage falls apart. And I have to be fair and not only blame the women for this. So it's important to state right at the very beginning that this could be the other way around too, that the man committed a terrible mistake. It wouldn't be fair to just blame the woman, just that with a woman, as you know, is a lot more sensitive, a lot more delicate. She's the one that bears the children, and therefore it is extremely important that we know who the father is, who the mother is of a child. It's not something so simple that a married couple can just go ahead and try other relationships at the time that they are married. We are unfortunately too familiar with this. This is a phenomenon that has existed throughout history, and sometimes it happens by mistake. And that's what this parasha speaks a little bit about, that sometimes people are carried away. And as a result of that, we have to be extremely careful that this should never happen. Even though the parasha does speak about the potential for this happening, it does not always happen. There's always that potential. And because of that, a husband may suspect, only suspect, that the wife may have done something wrong. She's been caught speaking to a man that she's not supposed to be speaking to, especially in private. She was warned about it. So obviously there's some carelessness too here. And perhaps you can even add that there is some chutzpah. There is a lack of respect for the husband. And as a result of that, the suspicions arise. And some men are extremely jealous and possessive, and they could be wrong. It's only because of their nature, because they're possessive, because they're jealous, that they may be over-suspicious about their wives. Nonetheless, these problems do occur, and that's why the Torah has to warn us to be careful, to not let this ever develop this kind of a situation where a husband has to fear that perhaps his wife no longer loves him, no longer wants to be with him. Or simply the other way around too. It could be that the husband is involved in something that is totally not proper, and the woman has reason to fear that her whole relationship is about to collapse. So these are serious problems. And what's interesting is that the Torah addresses not only the problem, but also the solution in this week's parasha. Here we're talking about a weakness. It's definitely a weakness in nature that comes about as a result of succumbing to the Yetzer Hara, to the evil inclination. No one can ever say it's not going to happen to me. The rabbis tell us when it comes to immoral behavior, almost no one can claim that he has very good defenses, that this will never happen to him. It could happen to just about everyone. Therefore, the Torah describes to us a situation where a woman's weakness led to the destruction of an otherwise good home. And I say good home because it could very possibly be that at the very beginning of this marriage, they were the perfect couple. Devoted, respectful of each other, perfect. Not that they were not compatible from the very beginning, things went sour. No, from the very beginning, everything was just right. Poor judgment, mistakes happen. So here we're about to see a weakness, but we're also about to see strength. We're about to see the hero in this week's parasha, and he's called the Nazir. The Nazir, the Nazirite, an individual who abstains from wine and the derivatives of wine for a little bit of time, he is a gibor. He is heroic, he is courageous for exercising self-control. And we're going to see what the connection between these two are. Rabbis tell us that if an individual sees a sota bekilkula, he sees a house that's falling apart as a result of a woman making a very big mistake, yazir et atzmo min hayayin. If he sees this happening, that a house is about to fall apart because the woman exercised poor judgment, she made a terrible mistake, he should abstain from wine. In other words, he should become a nazir. What's the connection? Well, first of all, the Kabbalah teaches that the fact that the man, this individual, saw this, he observed this, he became aware of it, that in itself is from Shamayim. From Shamayim, from heaven, they wanted him to see this. You don't just become a witness, you don't just observe something because you happen to be there at the right time. From Shamayim, they wanted you to hear something, they wanted you to observe something. There's some reason for it, something to learn from it perhaps. So haroeh sota bekilkula, one who sees a sota, as she's called, a woman who deviated from the right path, who sees her bekilkula, sees her in her low, very, very low. The house is falling apart. The mother is falling apart. Yazir et atzmo min hayayin. He should learn from this to abstain from wine. What's wrong with wine? We drink wine all the time. We don't get drunk. We can understand that getting drunk is no good, but yazir et atzmo min hayayin, altogether, stop drinking wine. Yain represents ta'avot. It represents the desires. And here the Torah is telling us what's important for man to realize is that he needs to be strong. To be able to resist the evil inclination, one has to train himself to exercise self-control. Self-control from ta'avot, from all the appetites, from all the desires. The place to start is with alcoholic beverages. Wine. That is what makes people merry, happy. That is what gets them high. And obviously that's when they can easily lose control. More than just chocolate. You can exercise control from chocolate too. From any tava, it's a good thing to do. To train yourself, to hold yourself back, to restrain yourself, so that you should not be addicted to any tava, to any desire. Because when a person becomes addicted to a desire, then that desire controls him to a certain extent. But it's not so much the control. The Kabbalah reminds us that the more physical we are, in other words, the more we are immersed in food and drink and pleasures, then the more strength we give to the Yetzer Hara, the more we become physical in nature, and there's less room for the neshama, for the soul to express itself. The soul is no longer as strong, and therefore not able to resist all kinds of temptations. So when rabbis tell us, Yazir et atzmo min hayayin, they're telling us this is something that he should pay attention to. He just observed something terrible, something very, very sad. And therefore, if he doesn't want it to happen to him, or if he wants to be an example to others, let him take advantage of this moment, because that moment may not come back. He may not be as inspired in the future. This is the time, as you're learning about this terrible, sad story, take upon yourself something to exercise self-control, because that is what will give you the strength that you need to do battle with the evil inclination. Some people may think that the Nazir is crazy. Abstaining from wine, what will it do for you? Not too many people do it, and that's why people think of it as something strange. And that is why the Torah uses the word ki yafli in describing the act of making a promise to become a Nazir. The Torah uses the word ki yafli, which is a very, very unique word. If you look at the word ki yafli, as he makes this promise, it consists of the letters Pei Lamed Aleph, which really means Pele. It's a wonder. Because the truth is, this is a true wonder. There are not that many people out there in the street who really want to be a Nazir. To exercise self-control, do you know how much advertisement there is to sell you all the pleasures that you can ever dream of? Whether it's a cruise, whether it's some other vacation, whether it's a certain food item, People love to eat. People love to enjoy themselves. People love to pamper themselves. So to become a Nazir is something very, very rare. So ki yafli, as the commentators tell us, contains the word pele. It's amazing that somebody actually would want to do it for the real reasons. Not just because he wants to lose weight, not because he just wants to stay away from something he doesn't really like so much. No, he intentionally does it for Hashem. He does it for Hashem, so the Torah says, Nezer Elokav al Rosho. If that's the case, then the crown of Hashem is on his head. Crown, that means he's important. That's very impressive. But why should he want to do it? Just because he observed something? Just because he doesn't want it to happen to him? No, it's not only because of that. The rabbis remind us that even if a person is good, and there's no reason for him to suspect that something may go wrong with him, nonetheless they tell us, Al ta'amen be'atzmecha ad yom motcha. Don't trust yourself. Don't trust yourself until the day you die. In other words, one may be a tzaddik, one may have a perfect marriage, but don't trust that that's the case tomorrow, that that's the way it will be 10 years from now. We don't know. There's all kinds of pressures in life that take a toll on relationships, friendships, partnerships. We're all too familiar how these types of relationships can easily fall apart with time as a result of all kinds of challenges. So as a result of the challenges and the temptations, there are a lot of michsholim, a lot of stumbling blocks out there that anyone can possibly fall. Anyone, if you're not careful. However, from the potential to fall to the actual fall, there is a little bit of a distance. We know the potential exists to make mistakes. We know that. But do people actually make this terrible mistake? How often does it happen? Rabbis tell us a person will not commit a transgression unless a spirit of folly enters his mind. In other words, if he's an otherwise good person, he's a righteous person, there's no reason why he should make a mistake. That's true. Of course, it could happen, but what are the chances that it will happen if he's good? Not so much, unless, of course, he is exposed to the bad influences, he has bad friends, then the chances, of course, are greater. But otherwise, why would he fall? So the rabbis tell us he could fall im nichnas bo ruach shtut, a spirit of folly. What's a spirit of folly? Shtut. In other words, how could he be so crazy to make such a mistake? So the simple explanation for ruach shtut is that one does not evaluate the situation proper. What am I going to gain and what am I going to lose? Evaluate it. I'm going to have a few minutes of pleasure, but I'm going to lose chaz v'shalom, olam haba, the world to come. Perhaps I'm going to suffer greatly as a result of this sin. People don't always calculate the pluses and the minuses, the pros and the cons. What are they going to gain and what are they going to lose? And that is what the rabbis remind us in Pirkei Avot. Always before you do something that is somewhat questionable, ask yourself, Schar avera keneged efseda, schar mitzvah keneged efseda. What am I going to gain if I'm going to do this mitzvah, this beautiful mitzvah? What am I going to lose if I don't do it? If I give it up, it may not come back. What am I going to go? What am I going to gain if I do this avera, this sin? And what am I going to lose, God forbid, if I do it? So, if people were to take the time to think, they would perhaps not make so many mistakes. So the ruach shtut, simple interpretation of ruach shtut means that they don't calculate properly the gains and the loss, and as a result of that, they act impulsively, quickly, without thinking things over. And that's how they make mistakes. Two of the most famous individuals in the Tanakh that made mistakes, there are more, are Shimshon and Shlomo HaMelech. Shimshon, Samson, Shlomo, Solomon, the king. But tonight we're going to talk a little bit more about Shimshon, because the Haftarah, the portion that we read after the Parasha, deals with the birth and a little bit about the life of Shimshon, who was a Nazir from the moment he was born. A very different kind of a Nazir. Very unique Nazir. So we need to talk a little bit about him. But it's important to keep in mind that these are great individuals. Shlomo was learned. There was no wiser man than Shlomo Melech. And he made mistakes. Shimshon HaGibor, he was strong in a very, very powerful way. Miraculous way. And he was a judge. He was a great man, and he made a mistake too. And the mistake, of course, with Shimshon and with Shlomo has to do with women. Being involved not with the right woman. And instead of getting into the story of how Shimshon actually made a mistake in being led astray, we need to first understand the story of how he was born and what were his parents told by the angel. Something very interesting instructions that they received. So we're going to pose the following questions. If you read the Haftarah, or if you read that section of the Torah that deals with Shimshon, the first question that comes to mind is, why is Shimshon, of all people, an entire Jewish nation, is he going to be a Nazir lekol hachaim for the entire life? Not just 30 days, which is a minimum in the Torah, Nazirut, 30 days, it could be longer. He is being told by an angel. The parents are being told the child that will be born, he will be a Nazir for all his life. And what does that mean? The wine and anything that a Nazir has to be careful with, impurities and the like. So why? Why entire lifetime? In the case of Shimshon, the parents are told to be careful too during the pregnancy. Father and mother also need to abstain from wine and its derivatives. Why the parents? It's the child that's going to be a Nazir. Third question that you may ask is, Shimshon, as we know the story, was a very, very strong individual, but not just strong, very, very strong, something that is not human. If you read the story about Shimshon, you'll know what I mean. It was Gevura Ilait. It was something very, very powerful, out of this world. Why did he need to have this kind of Gevura, this kind of power to defeat the Pelishtim? They were having trouble with the Philistines then. So you need somebody like Shimshon. You take a whole army, army of courageous soldiers who are strong, and let them win. They've done so many times. No, you need this one individual who can defeat many. So it's also something interesting. Why does it have to be that Shimshon should deliver the Jews from the Philistines? That he should be the one? After all, Hashem has many messengers. Many people can do it. If all it takes is to defeat them, Hashem can make it very easy. Let them not think of war, the enemy. Let them stop bothering us. Why have to go to battle? Why send Shimshon? Why should the Yeshua, why should the salvation come in this way? Through the power, the unusual power of Shimshon. So for that we need to understand the difference between Tum'ah and Kedusha. There are two powers in this world. The power of holiness or purity and the power of unholiness or impurity. And these are two very, very powerful powers that are opposing each other. They are there from the very beginning of creation, and they're opposing each other, completely different from each other, wanting different things. What is power? Think about the nuclear bomb. The nuclear bomb is something very, very powerful, right? It can do a lot of destruction. A lot of people can get killed as a result of a nuclear bomb. We've seen that, or at least we've seen pictures of it. We've heard about it, how destructive this power is. And what is this nuclear bomb? Something physical in nature. Physical, but powerful. So in order for us to be impressed about power, I'm using this example of a nuclear bomb. Look how powerful it is, and look at the destruction that it could inflict anywhere. In the same way that such a power exists, a power in the physical world, the Kabbalah teaches such a power exists in the spiritual world too. There is a great spiritual power out there, and some people have that power. Some tzaddikim, some righteous individuals are endowed. Hashem has given them this power. Where have we seen this power of Kedusha, the tzaddikim? Through all the miracles that they have performed. Many of you may have known people like that, like the Baba Sali. It was clear that they had tremendous powers. So if you want to have a little bit of an idea of what the power of Kedusha is, think about those tzaddikim that were able to perform incredible miracles. The problem is that Tum'ah, impurity, has a little bit of an advantage over the Kedusha because we're talking about the physical world, the material world. So since this is the home base, as they call it, of the Tumah, in a sense, so therefore, it's very easy for somebody to be carried away more by the Tumah than to want to pursue Kedusha, holiness. Otherwise, why don't we see more people going after Kedusha? Holiness, it's tremendous powers, miracles. It's not so simple. We're living in a physical world, surrounded by physicality and material. So we're enthralled and influenced by it and want it, desire it. It's pretty much human nature. So therefore it is easier to fall into the Tumah, God forbid, than to follow the Kedusha, even though the Neshama is pure, the soul is pure, and the soul would want to be holy. It doesn't want to have anything to do with the physical world. But we're living in a physical world. So the Tumah has somewhat of an advantage. During the time that we're talking about, during the time of Shimshon, the Jewish people were in a very, very low spiritual level. Matzav Ruchani Yarud, as we would say in Hebrew. Very, very low. Very, very weak. If you want to know why, what does it mean, very, very weak? This is a time where the evil inclination to Avodah Zarah was very, very strong. And we have no idea what that is. Today, we don't even understand why those people were so excited about rushing to a shiur on Avodah Zarah. Imagine, a class about idolatry, or witchcraft or whatever. Why would they be so interested? Why would they be so excited or pulled? Why would they worship these things? We can't understand it because we don't have that pull. Today, there is only a pull to money, which always existed, and to a few other things, but to idolatry, the rabbis tell us that stopped. When they came back to rebuild the second temple, Beit Sheni, Hashem took away that evil inclination. They prayed, of course, for that to be removed, because that really was a stumbling block. It really, really interfered a lot in our relationship with Hashem. So because of that, we don't have that today, thank God. But Hashem says, I have to be fair, I still have to allow for free will. So I will always have in this world things that will pull you in the opposite direction. So if we want to have an idea of what the pull of Avodah Zarah was like, what was it like, just think about the pull of money. That's my best example, because people go crazy when it comes to money. They'll do almost anything that's against the law, against the halacha, if you're going to promise them lots of money. Somehow people fall into this trap. Money is very enticing. So I use this as an example, just you want to have an idea of what the Avodah Zarah was. Think about people how they're tempted to do for money. So this is a situation back then that the nation, the Jewish nation, is in a very low spiritual level. And this is as a result of the idolatry that caused tremendous havoc in the Jewish people. And what was the siman that they received from Shemaim? How did they know that they were not doing well? One indicator is battle with the enemy. Whenever the enemy gives us trouble, they don't know this today in the Knesset for some reason. They don't understand. Whenever we have trouble throughout our history, it was always the same thing, because something is wrong with us, not with them. They're just messengers, even though they're to blame, of course, they're to blame. I'm not taking away their blame, but they're messengers. And if we would be doing everything right, they wouldn't think of causing any problems. They would be happy to cooperate and live with us, and everything would be fine. So if there's trouble being stirred up by enemies of the Jews, it is a clear indicator that something is wrong with us. We're not doing something right. Rabbis, for example, tell us, I'll give you another quick example. Wildfires in Israel. There are a lot of wildfires. It is a clear indicator, not just a indicator, a clear indicator of Chilul Shabbat. They say so clearly. It could be other reasons too. But it's Chilul Shabbat, the desecration of Shabbat. There is Srefot, fire. Now you may ask me about the fires in Northern California where there were no Jews. That could be for other reasons too. I have a whole lecture about natural phenomena, natural disasters. Why do they occur? Why are there earthquakes? Why are there wildfires? Or why are there volcanoes? There's a reason for all of these things. And it's not just that it happens by chance and people get hurt. Pompeii, if you heard about what happened there, if you read the history, there was a reason for it. We don't have the time for it right now, of why
It erupted and destroyed so much, and so many people lost their life as a result. It's Om Nashamayim. So here, the Jewish people are told time and time, over and over again, that they're not doing something right. So the enemy is reminding them. Okay, as a result of this trouble that they're in, how do we get out of it? So you may say, okay, let's just do teshuvah. Yes, the Jewish people from time to time did get the message, they had prophets, they somewhat repented, they felt bad, and Hashem accepted their prayers. And that is when you see, occasionally, the things calm down in Israel. And for 40 years, there's peace and tranquility. But that was not the case here. Here, there was a tremendous power out there with this particular enemy of Tumah. As the Kabbalah would call it, a very, very strong klipa. Klipa is an impure shell. And there are all kinds of klipot the Kabbalah speaks about. That klipa of Pelishtim was very, very strong. And it's an impure shell. And the only way to defeat that impure shell is with a tremendous koach, tremendous power of the opposite koach. The opposite is kedusha. You needed holiness, a lot of holiness, a concentrated amount of holiness to defeat this tumah. Otherwise, it wouldn't go away. Think about, just to understand what this is all about, think about a person who's tameh, unclean as a result of contact with a dead human being. Not just an animal, dead human beings. We know that that is a very heavy duty tum'ah. Is it enough for him to just dip in the water, dip in the mikveh? No. He needs the efer of the paraduma. He needs the ashes of the red heifer. It's a whole ritual. It's a whole procedure. And we don't have that today. So we're impure because we may have, of course, easily come in contact with dead people. But that required of an individual, besides the ashes of the red heifer, whole ritual, and 7 days of time. You have to wait 7 days. And today, women know what it means to wait. You cannot just go to the mikveh and remove that tumah. You have to wait a certain amount of time. It's a issue of time, besides the ritual bath, besides if during the time of the Bet HaMikdash, the ashes of the red heifer. So we see to remove tumah is not something simple. You know, just say some words and abracadabra and it's gone, or just dip in the water and it's okay. I remember I was once traveling to Mexico, so I ordered kosher food. And in those days they gave meals. Today I don't know if they give meals anymore for those short flights. But I asked for my kosher meal. He says, "Oh, kosher? Yeah, of course." And he brings me a platter with aluminum foil. So I figured, oh, it's aluminum foil, it's probably kosher. And he may already have opened it up. So I opened it up, and I look at the one who's sitting next to me, who's not Jewish, eating not kosher food, and I look at my platter, they're both the same. And I said, this is not kosher. I don't see a stamp. I don't see anything. I take a closer look. Of course, I'm not just going to eat it. I don't see any indication it's kosher, even though he told me it was kosher. So I asked him, "Where? This is not kosher." He says, "No. You want me to bless it and make it kosher? You know, what's necessary to make it kosher?" They don't understand. They think just making a blessing makes it kosher. Ignorance. So, same thing with tumah. You know, it's not so simple. Just to get rid of the tumah. What's tumah? What's impurity? We don't even see it. It's not dirt that we can actually see. It's a whole subject in a sense. It's a big subject. But I'm partially going into it now to understand a little bit of who Shimshon was. And where did that power come from? So, here we have a tremendous amount of tumah on the side of the Pelishtim. It has to be weakened. Eliminated, it cannot. Hashem does not, for his reasons, want to completely eradicate. Otherwise, he would have gotten rid of Amalek a long time ago. This power he created, it remains in the world until Mashiach comes. But we have to protect ourselves. We have to go to war against it sometimes. We have to deal with it. So therefore, what's necessary to defeat this Tumah Kedusha? A strong Kedusha. Therefore, you need someone who's not just a Nazir. You need someone who's a Nazir Mirechem, from the mother's womb. A Nazir from the very start. From the moment he's born, he will be Nazir all his life. So the Kedusha can concentrate in him. Same thing with the Kedusha of the parents. We say, why would the parents need Nazirim during the time of the pregnancy? They needed to also abstain from wine in order for the child
to be born holy. Very important lesson is learned from this. Look how the parents' kedusha can affect the type of children they will have. Some simple parents, they're simple, they're not very learned, have had beautiful children, saints, the shamot teorot, pure souls, because they were pure. They were not learned, pshutim, but they were holy, simple, honest, good people. Vezachu, they merited having tzaddikim, great righteous individuals. They're children. There are others who are very learned, very, very learned, but not the most holy type of people. And their children came out so-so, nothing special. And sometimes they were given a child that was rebellious too, for some reason that we don't know, reincarnation perhaps. But we do know it's a fact that depending on how the parents conduct themselves during the time they're together, before and after the kedusha in the home, that can have a tremendous influence on the child. Hopefully a positive influence. What about the power of Shimshon? So Shimshon is very powerful. We know he has a lot of kedusha, but what's this power all about? This comes as a reminder, as a lesson to the Jewish people. You see, you think that there is power in the tumah? Look at the power of kedusha, and you'll be amazed. The kedusha has tremendous power. You don't have to go after that. We have the kedusha. Sometimes people go to sorcerers, people go to all kinds of fortune tellers, and do all kinds of things that are prohibited from the Torah. You don't have to go with them. Just believe in Hashem, trust in Hashem, pray to Hashem, or go to a tzaddik for a blessing. That is the right thing to do. We don't need to do these things. We don't have to go there. The problem is that even if they may say something which is true, you're getting too close to them, too close for comfort, and you may, God forbid, become tameh. You may become impure, unclean as a result of contact with them. So you don't just want to be involved with that. So that is why the Torah forbids us from getting involved in certain practices that are associated with tum'ah. Even though there may be some truth to it. The Torah doesn't say this is false completely. This is babamaisis, as we say in Yiddish, nonsense, fairy tales. The Torah doesn't say that. It could be partially true. They may have powers. We just said that tum'ah has tremendous powers. Tremendous powers. But where does that power come from? A Jew was always therefore not impressed when he saw something powerful. He knows powers exist. His only concern and question was, Maha makor shel zeh? What's the source, from the kedusha or from the tumah? Where is this coming from? Is this guy for real? Is he a holy man? Or is this coming from impurity, impure forces? So just remember, don't be impressed. You see something like that, it may be real, it may be fake, there's a lot of fakers. But even if it's real, be careful, it could be coming from the impure force, and that's dangerous for the Jew especially. Because we are from the other camp, the side of the Kedusha, so we can't get too close to that. So here we see an incredible example of the power of Kedusha in Shimshon, that Hashem wanted us to see. Look what the power of Kedusha can do. And therefore, if physical koach exists, if physical powers exist, the more so, you should know that there is such a power in spirituality too, and you can attain it. If you work yourself and cultivate that power within your neshama, you can reach those levels too.
Didn't Hashem gave power to the Kedusha and to the Tumah the same way?
Sure, He gave them, the two of them received the same kinds of power, but because we're in the physical world, the Olam HaAsiyah, which is very, very physical, so we explained that Tumah has a certain advantage, that people are automatically attracted more to that, and they don't listen so much to the Neshama. So the Tumah has a little bit of an advantage in this physical world. That is why we have the Torah. The Torah guides us. Be careful, stay away. Without the Torah, it's like not having eyeglasses and you need to see. You wouldn't be able to see so clearly. But if you learn Torah, you say, oh, I know this is Tum'ah, I better stay away from it. So without Torah, a Jew is really lost, because he sees, wow, all these people who are not keeping Shabbat are doing very well. They're rich and prosperous, and they live long lives, and they're not sick. So they don't see nothing happening to them. Where's the Torah? They have problems or questions with being Jewish or being observant.
That is why it's important to learn and to, if you have questions, to ask, why are things the way they are? What does all this mean? How do they have all this power from? How could they have power? They don't know what you just said, that Tum'ah has tremendous powers. And where I grew up, we saw these things. We know about these things, about witches. And people ask me, you see witches? Of course. Here you don't see them. By the way, they exist here too. Maybe not in Pico Boulevard, but somewhere else. These things exist, but in some countries, you hear more about them in others. And there's demons, shadim. All of these things exist if you know about it. So the Torah tells us, be careful. They're dangerous, and they are dangerous. They want you. They want to take you prisoner. And once you've taken prisoners, it's very hard to get out of them. Very, very hard to get out of their prison. So here, what was necessary was a tremendous power of Kedusha to break the impure shell, the klipa of the Tumah. So getting back to what we were talking about, an individual sees a sota b'kilkula. He sees a terrible case where a home that started off on the right foot is falling apart. A woman committed a terrible error, and now she has to pay for it. Her whole family is suffering. He should learn from this, since he witnesses, especially if he witnessed it, but even if he heard about it, he should learn from this that this could happen to anyone, because that power, or that ruach shtut that we mentioned earlier, that spirit of folly can affect anyone who is exposed to it. So the fact that you saw it, that you experienced it, and thank God you didn't, have to deal with it personally, but you just saw it from a distance, that should be enough for you as a lesson, as a warning. Listen, be cautious. Be cautious. Don't ever say, this will not happen to me or my kids. No, I'll let them watch all the pornography that they want on TV, and I'll control them. Only 5 minutes a day, or this. I was once asked by a certain lady, what's wrong with having TV at home? If she controls the channels, and if there's anything wrong, she'll switch. She'll be there when the child is watching. I said, what about the commercials? Sometimes the commercials are also not sanua, they're not modest. You have a lady in a bikini selling a car. I don't know what the bikini has to do with the car. I still don't understand. But I'm told that's what sells the car. And your child sees that. So she says, I'll catch it on time and I'll switch it. I says, you know what this reminds me? It reminds me of somebody that went to buy a dog for their child. And the owner of the dog told the person, you want to buy this dog? Let me just tell you, this is a very cute dog, but once a week it bites. It has this habit of once a week it bites. Would you want to buy that dog? I don't think you want to buy that. Not for yourself, not for your child. It for sure will bite. Same thing here. You're going to switch channels all the time. It's going to bite. From time to time, he or she are going to see something which is wrong, which is bad, which will contaminate the eyes and the mind. Why take a chance? And it all builds up. And some parents don't care. They just send their kids to see movies. Let them go to the homes of friends, even though they don't know what kind of friends they are, what kind of a home it is. And they're taking a chance because a child is very susceptible. Very susceptible. A teenager is extremely susceptible because of the additional pressures of that age where they want to fit in with everyone. And it's difficult to resist. To be a Nazir when you're a teenager is not very common. To hold yourself back, why should he want to? He's not thinking, he's in a dream world, a teenager. He's in a completely different world. Once the individual settles down, his 20s, 30s, hopefully, he said, hopefully he matures, then he realizes on his own some of the things. But it depends on what habits he's developed in the meantime. Those habits are hard to break. So that is why the Torah is telling us here about the Nazir, because the Nazir apparently is going to demonstrate to the entire world, I am going to exercise self-control. I don't want this that happened to my neighbor to happen to me. So this Nazirut, however, is a temporary Nazirut. It's not for his whole lifetime, 30 days. What did that accomplish? It accomplished self-control. He made a commitment and he kept it, and he showed that you can be holy if you want to. If you want to, you can be. You can exercise self-control. What kind of self-control? What is he doing? Just
Wine? What's the big deal? It's not so much the wine. It's the geder. Geder means offense. What is lacking in the home of this woman? What broke down before the home broke down? It very possibly that what broke down was gidreat sniut, the fences of modesty. She began to flirt. I think in English the word is to flirt. Coquetear in Spanish, for those of you who know. She began to talk, to flirt with men. And that's not modest for a married woman, even for an unmarried woman. What are you doing flirting? It's not nice. So as a result of that, the boundaries, the fences of modesty were broken. It could be an immodest dress, showy dress, anything that draws attention of the man. It could lead to trouble. Men can fall. Men can easily fall.
I read in some place
Yeah.
which is when the man doesn't keep the Shabbos or doesn't
Yeah.
keep the... So the wife usually she's sota.
No, there's all kinds of reasons of problems that can develop in the home. Yes, all kinds of reasons of why they happen. But here we're talking about specifically, we have to be specific here, that the woman used poor judgment. We need to focus on that, not on all the possibilities, because otherwise there's endless possibilities of why things can go wrong in the home. So here the focus is the gidreat sniut, the fence of modesty was trampled. She was not careful with it, and as a result of that, she basically ended up doing something very, very sinful. So the Nazir, what is he accomplishing just by abstaining from wine? What he's showing is, here, I'm making a gader of my own. I'm erecting a fence. It's a fence to remind himself that we human beings need fences. The Chachamim made fences for us too, in order to avoid falling, because they knew human psychology, they knew what we're capable of doing, and therefore they did us a favor. A lot of people come and complain, oh, why the Chachamim are adding to the Torah? They're not adding, they're simply safeguarding the Torah, so that we shouldn't come to commit more serious sins. So here, the Nazir is doing something beautiful. He realizes that we are susceptible, makes a gader for himself, and that gader begins with an example of ta'avot, which is the prime culprit in bringing about all this poor judgment. Drunk drivers, poor judgment, right? And they have accidents. So he puts up this fence from ta'avot, from desires, first one being wine. It could be additional desires, but he begins with wine. He does it temporarily to demonstrate, you see, I can control myself if I really want to. What does this do besides showing that he can control himself? It adds kedusha to him. Anything that we do to exercise self-control adds kedusha, adds holiness to us. And that holiness acts as a protection to us as well. A very, very important story that I very much like to share with people happened in Israel about 35 years ago, or actually maybe more like 37 to 40 years ago. The Baba Sali was still alive. This individual went up a bus in Israel, and he saw a woman that was not dressed modestly. And he looked away right away. He looked away. As he's going towards the back of the bus, and he intentionally wants to sit in the back because he doesn't want to see all the things that go on. As he's going towards the bus, he sees another woman who's very, very not dressed properly. He looks away, closes his eyes, doesn't look at her, and goes to his back seat. Sits down. As he's sitting down, he falls asleep. And in his sleep, he has a dream. In the dream, they tell him, wake up, tell the bus driver there's a bomb underneath your seat. So he wakes up, he says, a dream, bombs. In those days, that's when they started, bombs in buses, if you remember. He goes back to sleep, he falls asleep again, and he has a second dream. Somebody coming to him, quickly go tell the bus driver there's a bomb. This time he decides to look. He looks and he sees wires from a paper bag. Wires coming out of a paper bag, and he suspects that this is a real bomb. He goes to the bus driver. The bus driver immediately stops the bus, gets everybody out, and calls the bomb squad, right? It turned out to be a bomb. He saved the entire bus. But that's not the end of the story. He went to visit the Baba Sali, the great righteous man, as we know him, the Baba Sali Rabbi Buchatzira. He went to see him to get a blessing. And as he enters to see the rabbi tells him, so you know what those dreams were all about? Even though he didn't tell the rabbi anything. He didn't open his mouth yet. The rabbi tells him, so you know what those dreams were all about? Because you looked away twice. You merited to have 2 dreams of an angel coming to reveal to you that there was a bomb underneath your seat. 2 dreams because twice you turned your eyes away. Every time you turn your eyes away, every time you close your eyes, every time you don't allow your eyes to see something not proper, it adds kedusha, which adds shemira, which adds protection. And here, the protection for the entire bus, as the rabbi told him. And as a result of this act of holiness, you merited to save the entire bus. You merited to see 2 dreams warning you about it. Today, unfortunately, as you all know, the pritzut, the lack of modesty, is everywhere. Everywhere, in every country, unfortunately. And as a result of that, people who are walking the streets have asked me, what should we do? I just tell them to wear dark sunglasses. I don't have any other advice. What are you going to do? It's very hard. It is very, very hard to control yourself not to look. You have to look, after all. You have to see where you're going. So it's a big problem. The challenges of today are greater than they were 100 years ago. Even greater than they were 60 years ago. For the women, you remember a bathing suit 50, 60 years ago compared to the bathing suits today? I'm talking about the general public, not the Jewish bathing suit. It's terrible. Today there's no busha. The Gemara says there's no busha, there's no shame. Nobody's ashamed anymore, embarrassed to go naked in the streets. So you have this tremendous revolution of immorality. And I have a whole series of lectures about this, of what's going on in the world. And it's not enough to just be aware about it and to know. It's important to do something about it. So what are we going to do about it? We can't ignore it because a lot of homes are suffering as a result. A lot of homes break down because of this. It's not just in the Torah. It actually happens in reality. So it's not important to just be aware. When you learned how to drive, you may have been told by the teacher, possibly, it's not only important to know how to drive, it's important to also know how to drive defensively, because other people don't know how to drive. So you may be doing everything right 100%, but defensive driving is very important. You know what defensive driving is? You have to be on the lookout. The guy next to you may not know how to drive. He may make a mistake. It happens all the time to all of us, I'm sure. So you have to learn defensive driving. So today, that's what we need to do. We have to know how to avoid, even though we're doing everything right in our homes, everything right in our lives, every day. Baruch Hashem, we're behaving ourselves. But you have to drive defensively. How to avoid certain things that you know that could lead to trouble. We spoke about self-control. Self-control is also not too popular these days. Who wants to exercise self-control? Enjoy life. But this is really what one needs. If you want to increase the kedusha, if you want to avoid the people who do not know how to drive, you have to increase kedusha. So increasing kedusha helps one with shemirah, with protection, especially with all kinds of problems that surface every day. If one wants to deal with problems as they come his way, all kinds of problems that come one's ways, whether it's rebellious children, God forbid, or whether it's something in the family that is not right. You have to attend a wedding where where people are not dressed right, where they're mixed dancing. You have to know how to deal with these things. You can't just say, well, it's okay, nothing is going to happen. It's my family. They'll feel insulted if I don't mix dance with them. Why don't you take a shower with them too? What kind of a thought is this? People haven't come to that yet, but they're almost there. They're almost there. So people don't have boundaries. So as problems occur, if they do come your way, you have to know how to deal with them, consult with a rabbi perhaps. Otherwise, what happens? If you've ever seen termites, they cause damage. If you don't treat it right away, there's going to be a lot of damage, expensive to repair. Whenever you see something that is damaging, something that is wrong, deal with it right away. Don't let it get worse and worse and out of hand. People have really difficult challenges because sometimes it's in the family. And if you don't come to their wedding, they won't come to yours. They'll feel insulted.
But if it's completely wrong what you're doing, you have to put your foot down. If you don't protest, how are they ever going to learn that it's wrong? It's tricky, it's sensitive, but sometimes you have to be very, very strong about it. Otherwise, you lose your own protection. One has to raise his awareness about the situation and realize that the Tumah is very, very powerful out there, and it's trying to get people not to be too naive. Raise an awareness so that we don't, God forbid, come to make a mistake on our own. I'd like to just remind people that we love to invest in our homes. We love to buy nice furniture and nice things to dress up the home. It's completely normal and acceptable. But let's not forget to dress up the home or to bring into that home the Kedusha as well, not just furniture and beautiful curtains. How do we bring Kedusha? Having guests over, especially those that don't have a place to eat on Shabbat. Learning Torah, Shiurei Torah, mitzvot, all of these things add Kedusha. We spoke about adding Kedusha, and as a result of introducing more Kedusha into the home, we become stronger. Our homes become stronger. It's a tremendous chut for that house. Just like you have a mezuzah on the door as a shemirah, bringing in more and more Kedusha to the house is somewhat of a protection. That God willing, we won't get into trouble so fast because we have that Kedusha in our home. If you recall from Shir HaShirim, there's a beautiful pasuk. Apiryon asar lo hamelech Shlomo me'atzel Levanon. Amuda basar chesef, refidato zahav, merkavo al gavan, tochor atzuf ahava. I use that pasuk in the Song of Songs to describe what the house should be like. Apiryon is either I think it's called a paladin, like a carriage that they used to carry, where people sat in it, or it could be referring to the Mishkan, the Bet HaMikdash, that was also called an apiryon, a sanctuary structure. So Shlomo HaMelech is speaking about the apiryon that he made, regardless of what it was exactly, but he made something beautiful that was made from Atzei Lebanon, special trees, special wood. The pillars were silver. The couch was gold. The curtain was purple. So it's all beautiful, right? But tochor atzuf ahava, the most important thing was that the inlay, it was all love. Don't look at the pillars, don't look at the couch, don't look at the curtain, don't look at the whole thing, the structure, how beautiful, how big, how nice and expensive. Tochor atzuf ahava, it was inlaid with love. The love for Hashem, or in the house, the love a husband has for his wife, the wife has for her husband. The love is the most important ingredient in that house, the unity between them, and in this case, the love for Hashem, the Kedusha. This is more important ingredient that we bring into the house, not the silver, the gold, the purple, all the things that we think are fancy and look good. It's the ahava. A lot of people think they have ahava, they have love, but they have passion, they don't really have love. Just like to add one more point, a lot of people have asked me why Shimshon was not protected from Hashem. He was such a great man, he was a holy man. It could possibly be because the rabbis tell us, Abali tameh potchin lo, you want to become tameh, he went after Delilah, they're going to open the door. They're not going to stop him necessarily. But wait a minute, they should have stopped him because he was such a great man, nonetheless. That's true. For a great man, they sometimes stop, they sometimes don't let him, they sometimes intercede on his behalf, but it's very possible that Ador Shelo Lo Haya Ra'ui, his generation was not worthy. And when the generation is not worthy, even the leaders make mistakes. I don't only want to add one more explanation, that is my own. If you remember the story of Shimshon, remember he fought a lion? Why did Hashem send him a lion? We have a clear tradition that wild beasts will not attack a human being that has a Tzelem Elokim on him. He has the image of God on him. Why should a wild animal attack him? This was Min HaShamayim, yeah? Why would they send him an animal? Why would they send him a lion? Or even though he won, he was strong. This lion, they say, was a warning Mishamayim. They did warn him. What you're doing, where you're going is wrong. It's bad for you. You're going to fall. Unfortunately, he didn't heed the warning. We are warned from time to time. We are warned. We shouldn't forget about this. Mishamayim, they care about us. They don't want us to make mistakes. So we will hear about situations, we will experience something, we will come across something. We should pay close attention and keep our antennas up. Perhaps they're warning us. And every day we say, Lo taturu achrei levavchem v'achrei einechem. We say it in the Shema said, don't go after what your eyes see and what your heart desires. What should we do to stop that? We just desire, we see things. V'yitem kedoshim. V'yitem kedoshim does not only mean that you will be holy if you watch yourself, it also means be holy and you won't even come to that. See, that's how I interpret. Don't only interpret v'yitem kedoshim so that you should be holy. No, if you are going to be holy and you're going to do holy things, hopefully you won't have to come onto these things. You won't want these things. You won't be curious about things. You won't desire these things. So what do we start? Kedusha begins with one's speech at home, how one talks, no bad language. It begins with the foods he eats, of course, not to overeat. It begins with how people dress in the home, if they're modest or not, or if the husband goes around with his underwear in front of his kids. Even though it's his kids, it's not proper. It begins with what we see, if what we see is proper, not the internet, and ultimately what we think about our whole day, what we're immersed, what we care about, what we aspire to do. If those things are not proper, then that leads us to want those things as well. Anyway, let's not forget that even though there are many, many challenges out there, and we do our best, the challenges won't stop. We still have to do our best. And if we do our best, we have a tradition, shekol haba litaher, misayin oto min hashamayim. Whoever really makes a great effort, sincere effort, to become pure, he will receive divine assistance from above. Amen.